Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Deepu's Decoder. Let's learn something new today. Today we can see the benefits of minimum width request property in xamarin Forms. Minimum width request property is introduced in very long back in xamarin Forms application. But very few of the developers will know about this property and uses their applications. Today in this video I will explain what is minimum width request property and the advantages of using this minimum request property. Minimum width request property is a similar kind of width request property in xamarin Forms application. But the big difference is here we are setting the minimum width to the element. By setting this minimum width request, the element will always maintain the minimum width at any situation. The main advantage of using this minimum width request property is if you set this property to any element, the element will grow as much as required if at the time of content is growing. But if the content is less, the element will always maintain the minimum width. Now we will see the difference between width request and the minimum width request properties. For understanding, in the left side, I have taken the one label element, and that label element I am assigning the width request is 100. In the right side, I am taking the another label element. For that element, I am assigning the minimum width request is 100. So we will take two scenarios and we can compare the behavior of these two label elements. At the first scenario, I am assigning that text is very less. At that scenario, my left label also will maintain the minimum width 100, and the right side element also will maintain the minimum width 100 even though the content is less. In that first scenario we don't have any problem. Both width request and minimum width request properties will behave similarly. But now we can see the second scenario. In the second scenario, I am assigning the very large text to my label element. In that scenario, my label one element content text is coming two lines because I am setting width request is 100. Due to that, the text width is restricting to the 100. The remaining text is coming to second line. But in the case of minimum width request property, the text will increase proportionally to the my label element width also increase. So here we are getting the good result because the minimum width request property will set only the minimum width. It will not restricting the any element with that width request. So if the content of the element is less, it will maintain the minimum width. And if the content is high, with proportionally width also increased. So this is the big advantage of using minimum request property. Let's see practically the advantage of using minimum width request property in xamarin Forms application. Here I am creating one sample application, and here I am taking two scenarios. At the first scenario, my content will be very less, and the second scenario, my content is very huge. And now we can run the application and see the behavior of the width request and the minimum width request property in these two scenarios. Here I am taking my label element width is 120 in the all cases. Here you can see that. And in the first scenario, my label element content is very less. So in that scenario, label 1, I'm assigning the width request. For the label 2, I'm assigning the minimum width request. In the both the properties will behave same at the time of content is very less. But in the second scenario is my content is very high. Here you can see that. In the two labels, I'm using very high content. So in that scenario, my label 1, I'm assigning the width request is 120. So due to that width request, here the text is limited to 120 width only. The remaining text is coming to the second line. But in the case of label 2, the whatever the text is enlarged, that is proportionally width also is enlarged and it is coming very nicely. So this is the main difference between width request and the minimum width request. If we assign any label element is a minimum width request, in the case of less content, it will always maintain the minimum width. In the case of high content, with the content proportionally, that element width also will increase.
Thank you for watching our video. If you like my videos, please like, share, subscribe my channel and press the bell icon for getting further notifications.